Hashtag no music, no intro. We are back with our friend and esteemed ESPN's own Katherine Terrell,
Yes.
Saints beat reporter. It's been a while since. Do you get mad when people call you?
Esteemed. Wow.
Yeah. Should I not? Was that
Wow. Wow, that's like high praise. Sorry, do I get mad when people call me what?
KT?
Oh no, I don't care.
Okay.
That's what my friends call me.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Well, since
Y'all are my friends, so y'all can call me KT.
we finally met. We can finally.
I know it took as long for us to meet as it took for us to schedule a time for me to get on this podcast in the last month.
That's fine. It's been a while since you've been on the pod, and since then a lot has changed. Changed with the Saints.
A little bit.
A little bit. I think. Was Dennis Allen still the head coach when the last time you were on?
Ask that. So at least one quarterback retired, and maybe one coach got fired. I don't know the last time I was on.
Yes.
It was probably around the time he got fired, but I don't know if it was before or after. There's a lot that happened in this past year.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, it's never boring. I'll tell you that.
Always something.
At least not off the field, anyway.
No. So shout out to our dude Gilk with a $10 super chat. He said, "Let KT know that she's our favorite." So there you go.
Aw, well, thank you.
Our community loves KT. You know, they love it. We do.
And can I say part of that? We don't have a script on how we go this way. I think a big part of our community, what they love about you, Katherine, is that when you are in the media room, you are a pit bull in terms of asking questions that need to be asked, and you don't back down at all, no matter what. And I think that the fans, whether it be our listeners and not just our listeners, but just Saints fans in general, respect that, regardless of whatever answer and how brushed off you get. There's a respect and admiration that comes with that.
I mean, like, we all love our teams, right? We were talking about it before we started the podcast. You know, whatever team you root for, it's very important to you. And I mean, I always kind of try to remember that you know, a lot of Saints fans watch those press conferences. I mean, and because I just want to know what's going on with their team. And I try to remember that a large part of our job as reporters is to try to either explain things to the fans or to maybe be their voice. I try to think of it that way because, you know, obviously fans can't be in press conferences, but, you know, in this day and age, all reporters are online. So, or most of them anyway. So we see like what people are asking. And so I do feel like it's important to have a pulse on the fan base and kind of what they would want answered, even though, as you said, it often does not get answered.
Right. But sometimes it's just simple as like, you know, just a follow-up. Because, you know, it's like sometimes they have their little, you know, by the book answers that they prepared already. And you could quickly crash that just with a follow-up answer. And I always like that you'll come in quick with like but didn't you say or something? And they'll be
write
like,
it down.
And they're like,
didn't you say on November 12th that this was different? I should start writing that down, actually.
That sounds like me in my job. But like,
yeah. I should have a notepad and like flip it open, like
boom.
You know, yeah. I think 6 months ago you said this.
On this date, on this date, on such and such date, you said boom, 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 boom. Sorry,
it's like just don't BS us, man. Like that's what we always say. It's like I get it. You're not gonna, you know, put everything out there. You're not gonna. It's not our business to know everything that's going on inside the building and stuff like that, especially if it doesn't pertain to actual football on the field stuff. But like Saints fans aren't dumb. Like I know there's some out there that, you know, that are just fanatics, but a lot of Saints fans really just can see what's going on. Like earlier this year, we all knew something was going on with Derek Carr. Like, you can just see since the Super Bowl that something's going on. We don't know exactly what it is, but something's going on. So don't feed us this oh, everything's all just good and fine. Like, no, we see something's going on. So it's just a lot of frustration from Saints fans sometimes. It's like just be at least somewhat honest. Like you don't have to be 100% honest, but just be somewhat honest. Like don't just feed us crap.
Or even something as simple as the draft presser, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a draft presser. We're
Right.
not going to answer any questions that aren't related to the draft. So you're like, because that's when the Derek Carr questions were coming up, right? Because that was the first time Mickey Loomis had really spoken since the whole Derek Carr news that broke. And it's like, you don't think that the starting quarterback and his injury and maybe him being out doesn't relate to the NFL draft?
And what you're going to do. And even, okay, I can give you that. Fine. You don't want to talk about your quarterback situation right before the draft because you don't want to tip your hand to what's going on.
Sure.
Okay, fine. But on day 3 of the draft, when it's over and I ask you the same questions, why are we still saying we're not going to answer that? And it just creates this, to me, they say they don't want a media circus, but it creates more of one when both sides won't say anything. Or, for example, Carr chooses not to say anything, and that's his right, but has his brother speak for him. And then it's just like this whole weird circus on both sides. And it's just like, if everything is normal and you're hurt, and it's not, and it's all on up and up, then just have Derek release a statement that says I injured my shoulder, and the Saints release a statement and say like we're aware of it and whatever, and we're working on it, and let's move on. But the silence just of course makes people speculate because your quarterback is getting paid millions and millions and millions of dollars to play this year. So, I mean, it's not, I'm sure y'all have discussed this a million times and we've all talked about it. So I'm just rehashing what already happened.
Right.
I just think the silence makes things worse when there are ways to get ahead of that. And I don't know. I mean, I guess it worked for them because now we've moved on to the quarterback battle, right? So I don't know. This is my rambling opinion as a reporter, not understanding
No.
sometimes why teams, not just the Saints, just teams in
No.
general, do what they do.
No, but
so this is
go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
I was just going to ask you the Derek Carr situation in terms of the Saints spectrum and the things that you covered pre you leaving, covering the Bengals and then coming back. Where does it rank in terms of like Saints just drama, weirdness, hierarchy?
I think I was trying to think about this the other week when it was happening. Since I came back, there was a lot of weirdness before.
No, like all together.
Yeah. And I wasn't even thinking Bounty Gate because that was actually sort of before my time. I was thinking like, the Jarvis Bird weirdness, but that's just like normal weirdness, right? Like the Brandon Browner weirdness. Like,
I mean, he did threaten to beat reporters, like,
that was a little weird.
And I was standing right there when that happened, by the way. So. And I tweeted it out. He was not thrilled with me. So that was fun. But you have to, like, what are you supposed to... I'm about to get off track, I'm sorry, but a player is screaming at a reporter in front of you and has to be pushed into the shower by another player. And you're just like, well, I tweeting that, I guess. I've never seen this happen in my life. I don't think I've seen that happen. I've seen players yell at reporters since. There's one time that rivaled that when Adam Jones in Cincinnati was really upset at a reporter for asking questions about his arrest. But surprisingly, it doesn't happen that often. But your original question was one of the weirdest things. I do think the end of the Carolina game before Dennis Allen got fired, where all the players were on Twitter talking about how terrible the teams were, and the Panthers started fighting with them about who was worse. That was pretty funny and pretty high up there. But else, the last 4 years, I guess Peyton stepping down. I mean, that's kind of crazy that happened, right?
Yeah.
I guess that I guess people were talking about it as a possibility, but no one actually
Right.
thought that was going to happen. Um, and also, when that happened, my house is like some sort of weird fortress sometimes when it comes to cell phone signals. So if my Wi-Fi stops working for any reason, my cell phone basically doesn't work, and so I can't like connect with the outside world. So
Which would be terrible as a reporter.
it's not great. And so I think I saw or was told like, Peyton said he's retiring, and then the internet just goes out, and so like I
Oh,
had to like run out of my house and like go get in my car. Yeah, just imagine that during a hurricane, since there's no power, my cell
oh,
phone
Oh,
service just doesn't work, and so I'd just be sitting in here during like the last hurricane, no connection to the outside world. Um, but yeah, that was funny. Of course, I needed to be in communication with people at that very moment. Just my house was like, never mind.
is there like a similarity between like the Saints and the Bengals
mm,
from you remember? Because it seemed like both like kind of mom and pop. They try to run like kind of
Mm.
mom and pop shops. Kind of keep things close to the vest a little bit. Small market teams, both of them. Uh, did you recognize like the similarity in kind of the way they're ran, or is it just completely different?
Um, Maybe in some ways. The thing is that the Bengals approach their contracts very differently than the
Oh yeah,
Saints, obviously. In the Bengals, the way they explain that is that their their team is their income. That is how they make money. So they're saying,
yep,
so if we want to go sign a quote unquote cheap free agent, undrafted free agent or whatnot, we got to find a way to account for that money in the budget. Where obviously the Saints did not come up building money through the team, so they have other outside
right.
investments, and so I think they approach that differently. Um, and I always thought that was interesting. Like the Bengals when I covered them, did not restructure contracts
Oh
ever, and they
no,
actually do now. I feel like
yeah.
COVID changed things a little bit. All the teams kind of
Hmm.
had to get on board and do void years and things like that, but they haven't changed in that. And maybe they are similar in the Saints in this way. And if they have a value on a player or a position, like that's kind of it. The Saints do that too, so, to some extent. Like Marcus Williams, like they in their mind they were like, this is the value, we're not paying over that, and that's it. And then they signed two safeties that equaled that one contract, for better or worse, right? Like, was that a great decision? Well, I mean, you got Tyron out of it, but Marcus may barely played. So I mean, but would it have been better to have Marcus Williams? Well, he went to the Ravens, and he
Didn't
had,
do
I think,
much.
a good first year there, right? But
Hmm.
like, um nothing really great after that. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting. Maybe all these teams aren't really as different as we think they are. Um, but there's just certain things that they approach from like a financial perspective that
Hmm.
can be very different.
right. Um, what was I know you and was Jeremy Fowler, I think, kind of came together and wrote a
Mhm.
really great piece regarding just the whole Derek Carr situation. What was maybe like the most interesting thing for you that you kind of maybe discovered in putting together that column in that article?
Yeah, we kind of on a rush timeline because we wanted to put that out while it was still relevant. And we felt like, later in the summer, people might not have been as interested in the whole
Right.
situation as they were then. So, it was a lot of trying to see how many answers we could uncover in a very short amount of time, which means trying to convince people to talk. And I will say, both sides have there's a lot they haven't revealed, and I'm not saying like I'm hiding anything. I mean, truly,
Right.
it's surprising that there is a lot they haven't revealed, and I'm very interested to see what happens, when he actually files his retirement papers, and if there's an amended contract, if I get a hold of that, and like what that looks like. um but so we sat down, we said we wanted to answer all these questions, and the biggest question is, how did Derek Carr injure himself, and when did the Saints find out about it? And I think, did we just lose Ryan?
Yeah, we did. We could keep going. He'll join
Okay.
back on.
um Well, the fact that at least one of the assistant coaches didn't know about Carr's injury when Kellen Moore is now saying that he found out about it in the last week of March. Coincidentally, when Derek Carr reportedly visited the facility when none of the coaches were there. Like, see, it's all like this weird thing that happened at the last week of March, but they were all on recruiting trips or at pro days. Say
Pro
recruiting
days.
trips, but yeah, I guess that's sort of. I think one of them called it a recruiting trip. It's now in my head. So they're all gone, and so apparently that's when he visits the facility. Kellen Moore finds out at some point, but then not all of the assistants know.
Right.
But why wouldn't the assistants know? Wouldn't that have been of like utmost importance to tell the assistants? And so there's just so many weird layers to this. And it really does seem like both sides were like, okay, here's our settlement. Here's what we're going to say. We're sticking to the statement. And as things do, people will move on because the NFL cycle moves on. And, by the end of training camp, there will have like at least 10 more weird NFL stories that will
Yes.
push this further and further behind in the news cycle. So there's still a lot more questions.
Yeah,
I feel
just a
like
ton of questions.
just
Even
out
and
there.
there was a great article you and Jimmy Fowler did because I was waiting on like that ex post facto. Just give me everything. Like what fill in. Yeah, like fill in the
My favorite
blanks.
type of
Like,
article.
and
Yes.
it filled in a lot of blanks, but there was still like these lingering questions that I just don't think. I don't know if we'll ever find out. It's
Yeah.
like when was this injury from that Giants game? Like, was that actually there? I know it was reported by Jane Slater. We had her on recently. There's the question about that. It was like I said, is weirdly he's been kind of missing since like even for the Super Bowl, not New Orleans. Even though like every player was down there, which is his right. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't have to be down there. But it was just everything was just weird, and
Yeah.
everyone felt like something
We-
was coming to a head, and then you just started getting breadcrumb after breadcrumb. Meanwhile, while he's going through all this, him and his brother has like a YouTube show where they're test driving cars and talking football.
Right. On the day
On the
the
day of
voluntary
OTAs.
workout started.
Yes. The day of.
Yeah. Which, they're
No,
not
not at all.
They're not stupid. So that was weird. And also the timing of it all, it coming 3 days before workout started, and then I think the car thing was the car thing. I think that was posted on the 14th
Yeah, I
when
remember.
they all had to report, or
Yes, it absolutely
or
it absolutely was.
voluntold to report. I guess they don't
Yes.
have to report. But as we put in the article, it's the first time I believe that you haven't had a Saints quarterback there during those voluntary workouts since Drew Brees was looking for a new contract in 2012. And then he ended up showing up by either the beginning of training camp or mini camp. And also, he was very clear throughout that entire process
Right.
back then about why he was doing that and what he was doing.
Yeah.
So there was no, surprises. So I'd say it's very unusual to not have a quarterback there during these workouts. I mean, especially because it does seem like almost every single player was in attendance.
Yeah. Like every social media thing, it was just so telling. Like it's like, oh, all these players are there, and it's like, oh, Derek Carr's not there, and even like whatever. Like I don't want to rehash it. Like I'm kind of like over like the whole talking about the Derek Carr thing, honestly. But just to turn the page. But just looking back on it, just the telling thing of just, and we talked about it with I think we talked about it with Jane Slater or talking about with Mike Detillier, just like just the fact that Kellen Moore and just Derek Carr just never met was just so telling. Just absolutely so telling.
That was crazy because even Dennis Allen flew out to go get Michael to try to figure out what was going on with Michael Thomas, and I mean this is. I don't want to say why or why not Kellen Moore chose not to do that. Maybe he was told not to do that. Maybe the front office said they'll handle it. I truly don't know, but it just goes into the questions, and it doesn't really make anyone come out looking good in all of this. it's a weird situation. I do think that it's best that they have taken care of this now. I do think it seems
Yes.
like it's good for both sides. And they can move on. I mean, I honestly thought this was going to drag out until mid-June, early July, and then he was going to end up maybe put on IR, something would happen. And, at the same time, you got these young quarterbacks that are trying to win their own jobs. And I just think having the whole Carr issue hanging over their heads would not have been good for them. And so this kind of just, as Kellen Moore said the other day, it's like a blank slate. You can move forward, but yeah, it is bizarre.
It is.
Top
But
10
speaking of,
bizarre stories. We should do that on the podcast one day.
oh man,
But you'd have to narrow it to like the last 20 years, or
were
else the
you
list would be like.
covering? Were you covering the Saints or the Bengals when the Junior Gillette beach situation happened?
I was covering the Saints. I think that was right before I left.
we
Okay, that
that's a
has to be top 5. Wow.
easily.
No, it wasn't right before I left. I was at training camp. Yeah, that was 2015. Um,
Yeah,
actually,
easily.
I wrote like the what happened to Junior Galette's story, and then I'm not gonna lie, as a reporter, there's no better feeling than I showed up to camp and I'd already written the story, and so other people were asking Sean Payton about Junior Galette at the opening press conference at training camp, and he wouldn't answer it. And I'm just sitting there. They were like using some of the stuff I wrote in my story, and it's a really nice feeling to have things where other people try
Hell
to use
yeah.
that to ask questions. I mean, I do that all the time, and but it's great when you're like, yeah, I had that story. I had that
Um,
story in the works for a long time. It's crazy
it's
how
a
it ended that way, though.
it's an infamous story that's like it has a lot of
Yeah,
lore in Saints Twitter.
it
Uh,
does. It
but
really does.
it does. It's and the picture is like it's become a meme. Anyway, getting back to current Saints, the media was able to see OTAs last Thursday for the Saints. Were you guys weren't able to see OTAs today? I'm guessing probably not, right?
No,
No.
we usually see them on Thursday, so
Okay.
we'll
Um,
be out there Thursday, theoretically.
just
You see one a week.
okay. So just general because we are live streaming right now. Just general vibes of just maybe that's your first time seeing the OTAs ran by Kellen Moore. The quarterback competition. I guess. Do you feel like it actually is going to be a competition between Rattler and Shuck, and just the general vibes that you see, or that maybe you got from the OTA that you got to see on Thursday?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the biggest question we've asked amongst ourselves the last week. Is this a true competition, or is it, Shuck's job to lose? I do think it's Shuck's job to lose, but I don't think that the coaches are looking at it the same way we're looking at it. So we're saying he's a second round pick. They obviously want to get him on the field as fast as possible. And I think in an ideal world, that's what they do. But I don't necessarily think that the coaches are looking at these two and saying, well, Shuck's a second round pick. He's already handed the job. I do think, it's a two-player race. I think everyone thinks that. I think Jake Hayner is a pretty self-aware and funny guy. I think he knows that. He was like, I know I'm being counted out, but I'm used to that. You want to talk about weird stories? I feel like poor Jake Hayner has had something crazy happen every year of his NFL career.
Everyone, everyone.
Yeah, I feel like he's always has to like talk to the media after something weird has happened. Um, but I think it's a true competition. I just think that Rattler has to have a fantastic training camp to unseat Shuck. But again, that's just me. I'm not Kellen Moore, so he's probably looking at it with a different viewpoint. But really, at this point, so I'm actually publishing a story tomorrow that kind of details what they want right now. And Doug Nussmeier said it's kind of the 30,000-foot view. They're basically just trying to teach the quarterbacks concepts and general things right now, running the offense, getting in and out of the huddle quickly. I mean, basically fundamentals. And he said that what he wants from them is that, they go through rookie minicamp, OTA's minicamp, and he basically sits down with them, goes over their strengths and weaknesses and gives them basically homework as to what they need to work on in that. I think they get 3 weeks. They have to report earlier than the vets. So during that 3 or so week break, and yeah, it was interesting listening to them talk about it. They want it to be a competition right away, but they don't want them so focused on the competition aspect of it that they're ignoring that they just right now want them all kind of settling in and getting in the groove of things. Because they said a lot. They're like, there's only so many reps right now. We have 7-on-7s, but that's a very small thing. Most of what we're doing right now is in the classroom, which is why when I asked, is this a setback for Jake Hayner? Kellen Moore said it wasn't really, and I don't know. I think with Hayner, I said Rattler needs to have a fantastic camp. I mean, Hayner would have to have the camp of his life to usurp the other two. And I'm not trying to be mean, but
No, it's just facts.
yeah. But I guess Moore is saying like because we're so classroom focused right now, he's not really missing that much. It's just unfortunate when a guy's already like trying to fight to even get recognized as one of the two potential guys in this race. Other things I was thinking about during OTAs. We kept mentioning again that they probably need to add a taller receiver. The receivers all looked great, but they are all of similar stature. So I think other guys in the room might not be a bad idea. One of the reporters, I think, said they're tiny, and I was like, well, I don't think they'd like to be called short. Shorter. But Shaheed looked great. I know that's already been talked about a million times, but it was really good.
That's
to see
huge, though.
Him out there.
Huge.
Yeah,
I thought so too. I thought it was even good to have Foster just out there. He's not, participating yet, but the fact that he's out there to me, I didn't talk to him in the locker room, and some other people did. And he said either he's on schedule or ahead of schedule, so that's great. The big question is Taysom. What happens with Taysom? That's the other thing that I feel like there are just a lot of questions about, and how he's doing. It kind of feels like a black hole of information. Like it's like this big void of information that no one knows what's going on with Taysom, and other than obviously he had a very bad injury, and hopefully he'll play this year, but I don't know. I do think it's interesting they didn't touch his contract, but they didn't last year until much later either. So
it's just like a shoe. You just try to kind of waiting on that shoe to drop. I'm sorry I had to drop off. My computer just literally crashed out of nowhere. Never done that.
No.
I was like, okay. But I wanted to ask you, since you've seen been through the Sean Payton OTAs, you've been through the Dennis Allen OTAs, and you got just a little taste of the Kellen Moore OTA. Has anything stood out to you? Like just anything? Like anything like, oh, this is different, or this anything you expecting to see that you saw or whatever, like just anything stood out to you at all?
I always have to think about that. I feel like after a while, it all just becomes kind of a blur. You're so focused on OTAs when it happens, and then you move on to minicamp and then training camp, and then people ask you, what's the difference between this year and last year? And it's hard to come up with a reason or like a big difference because you're just not thinking about it anymore. And so I don't think anything really stood out. I'm sure once I get off this podcast, I'll have a great answer that I should have thought about, but maybe not at this early stage. What I'd like to see is minicamp, and when everyone has to be there. I assume that's when Camaro will show up, and then you're going to get to see, we still don't get to see pads, but you get to see a little more competition and things like that, and that's what I'm excited to see because our OTA session last week was in the indoor facility, which is sometimes kind of difficult as a reporter because things happen like really far away from you. So like Rattler was on the side where we were all standing when he was running with the ones, and Shuck at that time was down the field with the twos. And so it's very hard to keep an eye on both of them. So when they're outside, you can walk around the field and you kind of get a better sense of what's going on, or at least you can move around more. Indoor, it's kind of hard. It's a very weird niche reporter
Yeah.
problem. But yeah, I felt like a lot of us were talking a lot about Rattler because we were standing on that side, and obviously people are going to look and talk about the first team. But I did wonder if something like that kind of had any bias about like how day one of OTAs was covered simply because this was what was in front of us.
Right.
I don't know.
I
I
guess
don't know.
my question is, it's super early, right? And this is probably not fair to ask you, and I will preface this by saying that. But how do you potentially see this quarterback competition playing out?
I see Shuck winning it, but that's again what I was saying earlier. And from my perspective, I think they want. I think in an ideal world, they get the second round pick on the field. I also think, though, that, right now, Shuck is doing everything right. I mean, so is Rattler. He has done nothing wrong this year. But I do think that Shuck has very quickly kind of shown the small parts of being a starting quarterback that he understands and gets. Even something as small as, I said this on TV the other day, learning how to deal with the media. That is
Yeah.
a small aspect, but it actually can be important.
Huge.
How you present yourself in front of other people. And so far, he's clearly either just good at that part, or he's getting good advice because he's understood how to kind of make himself. I guess one with the fans. Fans just want someone that wants to be here. First of all, like
That's
they
it.
really want, yeah, they really want you to want to be in New Orleans. And just things like, oh, I hit a pothole the other day, or
Yeah.
whatnot, like silly things. That's stuff that, yeah.
He's
Well,
one
look
of
at the
us.
response it got. Like it matters. It matters.
I
Yeah,
can't speak to how many times I've seen people that like on draft night was cursing the pick out, like, what the hell, this old quarterback, blah
yeah.
blah blah. Then like after a
Old.
couple after a couple media interviews and stuff like that, they're like, I like Shuck, man. He's
Yeah.
all right. It's just that goes a long way. It's just funny how that works. You know what I'm saying?
I wonder if
So,
someone told him to put his dog next to him on draft night.
because that that goes a
Everyone,
long way.
Murphy.
I mean, everyone loves a golden retriever. Yeah,
Not-
just stuff like
not-
that, though,
Not
Oh, and
everyone.
just
KT.
well, I
Not
had a golden
everyone.
retriever growing up, so I would
How
love
can you
to have a
not
golden
like
retriever
how
again.
can you
Yeah,
not like a
those are
golden
the best.
retriever? Like, what the?
My brother
I'm
has
a
a golden
cat
retriever.
person.
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
look,
I thought
that's
you were
fine.
saying specifically you didn't like that dog breed out
Right,
of
like
other
a
dog
golden
breeds.
retriever. Like,
Yeah, they're the best.
I'm sorry.
One day I'll have one again when I have
Sorry.
a life.
Sorry.
But yeah, and also along those lines, inviting his teammates out to go before everything started to go to Tulane and
Right,
practice
right.
together.
Yep.
Very smart. Get your
Smart.
teammates on your side immediately. Get the
Yeah.
receivers on your side. Just like that. And none of
Old man wisdom.
Old man
none
wisdom,
of that means
man.
he's going to win the starting job,
No.
but so far, like, so good. And the thing is, though, Rattler is a very confident guy, and he's like, last year didn't erase my confidence. While
No.
acknowledging last year was very difficult circumstances. I would just draw a line through last year for Rattler, honestly, because I just think it was a very, very tough situation that he got put into. I'm not saying anything everyone else doesn't know, but half the team feels like it's injured. The offensive line's having issues. The coach gets fired. The starting quarterback is hurt twice. I mean, it's just it's hard to say. Okay, well, any of that was Rattler's fault. He had flaws that obviously he needs to grow from.
sure.
But I think a lot of quarterbacks would have struggled in that situation.
No question. And on top of that, you're a rookie. Like, you're a rookie quarterback swimming upstream, trying to figure out how to do like the toughest position in sports. Like,
It's
good luck.
And like no one likes to point this fact out, and I know it's like a little fact, but like of all the teams he played, all of them were playoff teams except for the Raiders. Like he played
Except for the Raiders.
like elite.
Every
playoff
team was a
teams.
playoff team.
Yeah.
It's like Tampa Bay, then Broncos on a Thursday night. Good luck.
Yeah, and just like people getting hurt left and right. And also like just look at that Green Bay game. The second I saw that Green Bay game on the calendar, before I even
Uh,
knew who was going to be playing quarterback, I was like they're going to lose that game. That
oh yeah,
is a incredibly difficult game for a dome team from the South to go play at one of the most difficult venues to play at, and much less have a rookie quarterback trying to figure that out. And so he just, there's certain games you're like, oh, that's going to be tough no matter what. And that Broncos game was always going to be tough because you know how
oh
Sean
yeah.
Payton gets about
Yes.
games that he's looking forward to.
Even though it was funny, it was like Sean Payton got to a point in that game where he looked like he started kind of feeling sorry for the Saints. Like, damn, like this is
Yeah, it
sad.
was
Like
pretty
this is just
bad.
sad. Like,
I mean, it was. It
Y'all
wasn't
like
it right after the Kansas City game too.
yeah,
yes.
Yeah,
a week and a half later. Yep,
yeah,
yep, sure was.
Yes.
yeah. Like,
Um
good luck.
yes, it was. Um sorry, I'll let Ryan go.
Oh no, I was just saying. I mean, with the quarterback competition, I'm really interested to see just like how much how much is going to go into like actually like this guy is going to help me win versus this is my guy. Like this is my guy, Tyler Shuck. We
Yeah,
drafted him. This is the guy I pinpointed. Like what it's just going to be so interesting to see how it plays out. You know, especially with the preseason. You got a joint practice with the Chargers and all that stuff. Because like I mean, it's not like whoever starts week one has to be like the starter for the rest of the year. You know what I'm saying? Like that could change week to week.
yeah,
The schedule is brutal to start the season. You
Woo!
know, it's like, do
yeah.
you want to throw a rookie out there week one? You know, yeah, you got the Cardinals. Then you got what? Who's week two? I can't even remember.
The
The
Seahawks or
Niners.
the Niners?
The Niners. Niners
I
week
think
two.
it's
It's like,
Cardinals, Niners, Seahawks, Bills. Because
ooh,
having to go to Seattle and then having to go to Buffalo is just
yeah. Oh,
mean.
Good
ooh,
luck.
That's just mean. But
Good
the
luck.
rest of the schedule, though, yeah. Well, it's in September, so at least there's that. But the rest of the schedule, I think, though, isn't so like diabolical like I thought it was last year.
yeah.
It's the Green Bay
Oh,
game. I was just like,
Like
that's
nope.
just mean.
That's an
Why
L.
would you do that? But it's funny though. Colin Saunders, out of everyone, is still very, very mad they don't have primetime games. I was talking to him about it in the locker room last Thursday, and he's still. It's like I just,
Let me shut up. I ain't gonna say.
yeah, yeah. Hey, he had like the most interesting play of the game against the
That's true.
Chiefs. You name
That's
one
true.
other interesting play that happened in that game.
he
I mean, there
Not
he
was the
many.
he
Derek
did.
Carr. There was the Derek Carr throwaway pass. That was pretty interesting to me, anyway. Bombs away
It
to the sideline.
depends on how you define interesting, I guess.
Hilarious. Like we got a good laugh out of it. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Besides quarterback aside, what are the other interesting elements of this team, offense, defense, that are interesting to you, or just see how it plays out? See how it plays out.
I guess the thing that more than anything prevents me from thinking that this is going to be a good season for the team is that they do have some exciting young defensive players, but I think that the core of the defense is old, and I don't know how you fix that. I don't know how you work around that. And I guess this is one observation from OTAs that I forgot. Is that I was watching Cam Jordan because Cam Jordan is always he's always like the happiest guy in the room to be at practice, which,
Mhm.
in year, 15 or so, it's kind of refreshing to see. Like he still enjoys his job as
Right.
much as anything. But he was also, granted, Chase Young was not at OTAs during that session, but he was very involved in the defense. And so you're looking at him and kind of saying, okay, they didn't just bring him back to bring him back because they need to deal with the cap issues and they're not ready to part ways with the captain. That might be an indication he's still going to be a very big part of the defense. So I'm wondering how that's going to shake out, and who's going to end up primarily playing defensive end and or outside linebacker, I guess, and are they going to have to work around some of these age issues with not only Cam, but Demario is 36, and Tyron is younger, but not getting any younger. Actually, as Saunders said the other day, we were talking about old people, and he's like, yeah, you're 32 in the NFL and you're old, but then you start
That's
coaching and you're Kellen Moore and you're young again because you're retired. Because Kellen Moore is 36
crazy.
and young, but Saunders is actually only 28, but people are calling him the old guy. But it is funny how Demario's old, but Kellen Moore is young, but they're the same age
That's
Right. That is
essentially.
insane.
kind of funny.
Isn't it funny how we do that? But
Yeah.
it doesn't take
Yes.
away from the issue of, is this defense going to be able to work around some of those potential issues, because you
Right.
can't keep these guys young forever. And offensively, I guess you kind of wonder, are they going to be able to keep their best players healthy? Do they have enough playmakers? Just there are a lot of fundamental questions I have about this team in this season. But I have said, I think the biggest goal is to have positive momentum. The biggest goal. This is not their biggest goal. This is what I think is their biggest goal, is to have positive momentum going into 2026, no matter how the season goes. If it's a total
Right.
disaster, then maybe you're going into 2026 with a high draft pick and you're going to take a quarterback high and people are excited about that. Or maybe these quarterbacks show you something and you head into 2026, like, okay, that season was bad, but we're still in the process of revamping, because they're probably going to have to part ways with some of these older guys next year. And so then you'd be moving forward with younger guys. So, that's my rambling way of saying, like, they probably don't need to have the greatest season to get the fan base back on board, as long as they show they're going
Going
somewhere and not
somewhere. Yeah.
just stagnant. Like last year was stagnant.
Yeah. Me and Adam, we always bring up like the Dan Campbell's first year with the Lions. I think they won 4 games, maybe.
Yeah,
But you could still see like,
You can see
yeah,
it.
they're bad, but like, man, if they get some talent on there, they're gonna be something. You know what I'm saying? Like you can see that they're
right.
fighting hard, they're playing well, and stuff like that. So I think if they, like, if the Saints show, if Kellen Moore can show like he could cook on offense, like he could, like he's that guy on offense, he could get the most out of quarterback. That alone is worth so much. You could really get a lot out of both Spencer or Shuck. That would make so much. And dealing with all the with the, I don't want to say lack of talent, but with I mean they do need some juice on offense.
Yo, God.
Yeah.
So if you could like get something out of Devin Neal and maybe one of Bub Means, one of those guys that are kind of afterthoughts right now for everybody, and get something out of them, like it'll mean a lot. And defensively, I mean, it's just like you said, it's the age of the defense. It's a new defense, so it's like, who knows? I guess what I was wondering, one thing I've been asking people is like, how likely is it for the Saints to be picking number 1 overall next year? Like,
Oh, that's a
I was
great
just
question.
I was just thinking about that. Like, I was looking at all the other teams, and I guess the Titans can still possibly get there, but maybe Cam Ward gives them a bump. It's like maybe the Browns back up there again. They pick number 2. I was like, man, the
That's a
Saints
great
are kind of
question.
right there in that mix. They're in that mix of that the
But
But
top
then they
5.
always win too many games,
always.
and that
Usually,
frustrate people. I'm never in
but
that
that's like
crowd
the
that I'm
past.
not an intentional tanking person at
Oh, neither
all,
me.
but it is
No.
funny how the Saints continually frustrate the the portion of the fan base that wants them to have a better draft pick, and then they end up with
And,
like 9,
and
14,
and this
11, or
year,
whatever.
and this past year was funny because they like only won 5 games but picked ninth overall.
And
Night.
this is terrible,
But
terrible
the
luck.
Chargers had the same amount of won games the season before and picked 5th.
Yeah. They would probably have to win only 2 games, right, to pick number 1. And
Or
are they
3.
gonna be that bad? I see them more as like a 6-ish win team, and like
5 or
that's not
6. Yeah.
gonna
Five or 6. Yep.
I think there's also just so many unknowns because I don't think anyone really knows what kind of coach Kellen Moore is going to be. I think
Right.
people's biggest questions with Kellen Moore is, okay, can he lead a room? And when things get tough, are the players going
Yep.
to listen to him?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%.
Does the quieter type personality work? And it does on some teams, but
Yeah.
the biggest, I think one of the biggest or most difficult parts of being a coach is managing personalities, and a
Mhm.
lot of coaches cannot do it. You focus so much
Yeah.
on, is he an X's and O's coach? Can he manage games? Can he do this? If you can't control 60 personalities, like what are you doing? And it honestly,
Done.
not even 60. Yeah, every team has what, like five vitally important players that
Hmm.
they need to be on your side, or else
Yeah.
you're just going to struggle. And, Peyton was just obviously an alpha personality, so he was able to control things that way. And so now we're kind of in the total opposite. I guess, I don't know, maybe Dennis Allen was in the middle. I mean, Rizzy would be more the alpha personality type.
Yeah.
And you'd hear some players say Dennis Allen was really hard on them when he was a position coach. But then last year, I've got players telling me that everything is lax. So it kind of makes you wonder, like, what happened?
What happened?
Right. So is he a guy, like, was he in the middle? So I don't know. It's big question mark. A lot's going to hinge on Kellen Moore, but also, like, the talent of the team is only going to take him so far.
So
And
far.
so he's going to have to come up with some creative ways to win games if there ends up being a, drop off with some of these players.
I think the one thing that someone wanted me to ask is, do you, it's regards, we talked about at the beginning, like, do you ever, I don't know, feel a certain way? Because it does feel of like maybe during the press conferences how like you're spoken to or maybe disregarded feels like a certain, like, it's different than like other media people of like,
Mm,
is it like do you feel like it, like, does it like, do
I
you
don't
feel
think
like
so.
it's, no, like, do you feel like it's like specifically maybe like because of your questions, like, is it like
I mean, they might
point?
know I'm gonna ask something that's gonna be frustrating, and so I don't. When Peyton was the coach at the beginning, Peyton did not like me, so shocking, right? And so we had to figure that out, and we moved past that. But even years in, other reporters would say, he has a different tone with you. I actually I didn't see it. Because I thought Peyton was kind of like that with everyone. Well, not everyone. If Peyton really didn't like you, I feel like that was obvious. But you know, I, I there's some reporters, like, I saw it at the podium. He bullied more than he bullied me. I don't even think bullied's the right word, but it's kind of funny. Like, and we all took our turns, taking the hits or whatever. Um, Hard to get a read with Kellen Moore because so many of these press conferences have been just a few people having to ask, like, what's going on with Derek Carr? What's going
Oh,
on
it
with these
was,
injuries? What's going on
oh,
with
it's for
this? What's
sure,
going on with that?
it was more Mickey related. It had nothing to do with Kellen.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I don't think Mickey wanted any of us asking Derek Carr questions at that press conference, but I think he understood that we were going to do it. I'm pretty sure he, realized that's what I was going to ask. But so yeah, I don't know. Maybe he may have. I didn't go back and really listen until other than transcribing it. So maybe he did have a tone. Are you talking about the draft
Yeah.
press conference or like
All of
the
them.
It's all
yeah.
of them. Every person.
All of
Every
them.
Yeah,
person.
I was just
Just
thinking coach
all
wise.
of
We
them.
only talked to Mickey at the podium a couple times a year, so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I guess it
Like
just
our
depends
people,
on the week.
like our listeners, like our fans, they listen closely.
Yeah,
Like they pay
y'all are
attention to everything. So, hey,
eagle-eyed listeners.
they really are. They really are. Matter of fact, we've been screaming about, hey, they need to put more mics in the,
Oh my
Yeah,
towards
god.
I
the
know.
media.
I have heard that. On the plus side, though, if I ask something really stupid, then people can't hear what I asked. So not not bad for me. It's surprising because in the media room, I think they put mics in the ceiling, so um, I'm
Oh,
surprised that it's such an
Do they
issue.
really like from the top?
I think that when they redid it, they had like built-in mics because I remember actually the
mm.
opposite thing. I went and I was in the other room while someone was talking one day to work on my computer, and I could like hear every question perfectly. And I was like, "Is there microphones in there? Do I need to watch what I say when I'm just hanging out in that room?" Can you
uh,
imagine if someone just had to spend their day like listening to what reporters have to talk about all day? It's not interesting. It's like
No.
90% are jobs and then like
okay.
2%
This is
something else.
this is completely off base, and I told Ryan that like maybe we're gonna get try to get Courtney on the podcast. But okay,
Oops.
so did you go to the women's of indie event
Yeah.
at the combine?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, so I didn't see you, but after
It was
that,
like
like
that room was so crowded.
so crowded,
I
it
didn't,
was it was
it was hard
hectic.
to find people.
I was there, and then afterwards, like Courtney makes her post on X and whatever, and so I like I post like me and Greg Rosenthal and Jordan Rodriguez are there and what have you, and then like in my great and I want to tell Courtney the story to like get her reaction. Like in my great like triumph, I set like support fucking women, right?
Hmm. Oh God, it took me a second to even. I was just like, okay, cool.
Right, cool, right, great.
I was like, cool.
Did not realize at all. And then someone like one of our listeners was like, yeah, yeah. And I was like,
It's my
what?
face right now. Did you keep it
What?
up?
Of course, because they started doing numbers, Cat. Like I couldn't take it down.
You should
And
have put like commas in between or something. I don't know. I don't
nope,
know how you fix that.
Oh,
nope,
I don't know.
nope. So like in it's great tweet about like supporting women and everything, my
That's
contribution to
awesome.
this whole thing, and I texted Jordan Rodriguez about this. Literally, is me. Like the last fucking thing you see is support fucking women.
I
There you go.
bet Courtney would find this hilarious. I'm gonna tell
She like
her.
she liked it on Twitter,
Yeah, I
so
probably
I
liked it
mean,
too. And obviously I didn't pick up on it because I was like, what where's the story going?
now you know.
Well, the number of dumb things I've tweeted are just exponential, so
There you go. Anything else Saints related? Oh, one thing I want to ask you. Since you are a LSU fan, we were talking about this prior to the podcast.
so you can see with a helmet in the background.
Of course, sicko. Um,
It's actually my brother's from like 20 or 30 years ago. It looks nice though.
it does. Thoughts on Garrett Nussmeier going into the season, and do you think that he is justifiably being talked up as a top 5 pick going into the 2026 NFL draft?
Ooh, I haven't even really started thinking about LSU football yet. It's LSU baseball season, the time that we're all
Nope.
pretend super baseball fans. I am an LSU baseball fan, but I'm a terrible fan this year. Um, I feel like someone said that months ago, and or they were just saying like, oh, he's going to be a really high pick, and I was like, are you just? I mean, that could have been during the season, and I was just like, really? You think that? And just from like what we'd seen at the time, and that may have been so long ago. I don't even know what year they were referring to, like, or what draft, but I don't know. What are the other like? Who would the other potential top quarterbacks be in this draft class? Because
Sellers
I'm not
from
like I think that yeah.
South Carolina, Drew Aller
Yeah.
from Penn State,
Penn State, yeah.
Clemson,
The Clemson
Cade.
I don't
kid.
know. I think
Yeah,
things can change.
right.
Things can change so fast, and that me saying that was not me saying he's a bad quarterback or anything. I guess I was surprised at how much that person like already was looking at him as a top draft prospect because I still think
Yeah.
he's got a long way to go. Um,
Mhm.
And yet, you know, you look at someone like Jaden Daniels, and he was able to just have this amazing season and just immediately translate that into the NFL. Which, you know, to the point where he surprised me with how good he was as a rookie that
Oof,
fast. And
it's
so,
unbelievable.
yeah, I know. Like, you know, I hoped he'd have success, but you know, he had such a great rookie season. So, you know, I think that Nuss has a lot of potential, and I think it's there. And you know, maybe at the end of the year, he is a top draft prospect. I think that a lot of people don't believe that Arch is going to come out next year. Obviously,
Yeah.
you know, that would be the one everyone's talking about. But you know, with
Oh,
the way the Mannings operate, I don't think they're in any hurry. Um,
None.
so, you know, I think LSU, though, they have these tough season openers, and they're going to have to get off to a better start than they did last year. So that's going to be a big test. What is that? Is that 3 months away?
Yeah.
The end of
yeah. Yeah.
August. I saw Schefter posted we have like
Oh,
100 days to the NFL season starts today, and I was
100.
just thinking, how already? So that means what? 90 days
90
to
days.
LSU, 80, something like that.
Yep.
I mean, I'm just throwing out numbers, but
moves so fast, so fast.
Quick.
yeah,
Unbelievable.
I won't be at that Clemson game, but I'm sure I'll be watching somewhere frustrated if they blow it. Can't wait for the season.
Wolf, anything more for Cat?
No, that's it. I got nothing else.
You're like I'm done with that. I'm like sniffling for some reason.
No, you're good. But no, we appreciate you coming on, joining us, talking Saints, a little LSU. We got we can make this happen. So, and glad.
Oh,
like
are y'all at OTAs on Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll have OTA updates on Thursday. Katherine Terrell of ESPN, esteemed ESPN
Yes.
beat writer.
Get it right.
Esteemed. I'm gonna start calling myself that from now on.
You should.
Esteemed beat writer. No,
Esteemed
seriously,
indeed.
guys, thanks for having me on. Y'all, it's always a ton of fun talking with y'all, and hopefully, you know, pretty soon we'll have actual stuff to talk about versus like the ghosts of quarterbacks past.
Oh,
Talk about the ghosts of
The
quarterbacks
future.
future. Yeah.
Yeah.
future.
Oh,
Honestly,
I can't
it
wait.
will be fun.
Exciting. Yeah.
I was thrilled to cover the Jameis and Taysom quarterback battle because we so rarely get that, and it kind of gave you this sense every day you got to go into practice and you know talk about something new. And sometimes
Right.
training camp can get monotonous, but that actually truly was fun. And the fact that all these guys are 26 or younger and you know have so much ahead of them, I think that's really exciting. And you know, whoever
absolutely.
wins or doesn't win, maybe they go on to have success somewhere else too. And so I don't know. I'm excited.
And you're like 1 year away from not having to write the how do Saints get 80 million under the cap? Like
I don't know.
you're like a year away. Then you're free for a little while.
I don't know. I think they're. Yeah, I mean, I guess Carr did them a favor in that and how they can manage the cap next year instead of just eating all of it at once.
Yeah.
But I remember before Carr retired, I kept telling people, I'm like, they're actually way tighter up against the cap next year than you think. Not like it has been in the past at all.
I mean,
but,
like 2 years away, not 2 years, because next year I
Yeah.
think they might probably be like 30 or 40 million over.
Yeah,
Right.
Then
they'll
like
go-
2027,
They'll go pay a pass rusher like $20 million, and
exactly. Who knows?
And there's a whole other that's a
Yeah.
whole conversation of like if they get rid of void years in the next couple of years that the NFL guard could talk. That's a whole nother conversation. That
Well,
Was that part of the salary cap discussion? I haven't read the details of that, but wow, that would make things a lot less fun.
Oh yeah, it seems
What
like
would I
that's
write
something
about?
they're kind of looking at.
What
Yeah.
would I write about? I just release all of my spreadsheets into the wild, never to be seen again.
Please, just load them up.
Katherine, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, KT.
Yeah.
Follow Katherine on Twitter, Instagram, everything. I'm sure you already have. If you're a listener, we appreciate you.
Of course.
Follow all her work, and we'll be back Don't know when we'll be back, but we appreciate you. We'll be back. We love our listeners. Please like and subscribe. And with that, we are out.
Peace.